The Shadow of Empire, a true story of the American Revolution's beginning. The night sky over Boston was heavy with clouds, and the winter wind cut through the harbor like a knife. Lantern light flickered across the dark water where 3 ships, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver, lay silent, their wooden hulls creaking. Inside their holds sat the cargo of empire, hundreds of chests of East India Company tea. On that December night in 1773, no one could have imagined that within hours, Boston Harbor would become the stage of an act of defiance that would echo across the world. Boston in the 1770s was not a quiet town. Its crooked streets rang with gossip and trade, its taverns filled with arguments about liberty and loyalty. Sailors cursed over mugs of rum, merchants complained about taxes, apprentices fought in alleys, and British officials in fine wigs tried to keep order while being jeered by angry crowds. The smell of tar, fish, and smoke clung to the harbor air. To the British Crown, Boston was a constant problem. Its merchants smuggled goods to avoid customs. Its radicals wrote pamphlets that stirred unrest. Its mobs threatened royal officials. And at the center of this storm was a wiry, intense man with sharp eyes, Samuel Adams. Adams was no wealthy aristocrat. He had failed as a businessman, but he had a gift for words and for stirring passion. Where others saw unfair taxes, he thundered about tyranny. Where others wanted compromise, he demanded resistance. He gathered allies, the Sons of Liberty, men who pledged to fight Britain's tightening grip. For years, Parliament had taxed the colonies on paper, glass, paint, and especially tea. The colonists argued they had no voice in Parliament, no seat at the table where these taxes were decided. No taxation without representation became their cry. It was not about pennies, it was about principle. By December 16, 1773, tensions had reached a breaking point. Thousands crowded into the Old South Meeting House, the largest building in Boston. Farmers, sailors, shopkeepers, and artisans pressed together, listening to fiery speeches. Outside, the ships waited. Governor Hutchinson had refused to let them leave without unloading and paying the tax. The deadline had come. Samuel Adams stood before the crowd. His words were brief but decisive. This meeting can do nothing more to save the country. It was the signal. That night, men disguised as Mohawk warriors poured into the streets. Their faces darkened with soot, their bodies draped in blankets. They marched silently to Griffin's Wharf. With axes and bare hands, they boarded the ships. One by one, they smashed open 342 chests and hurled the tea into the harbor. The dark water foamed with leaves. The bitter smell filled the air. Onshore, a crowd watched in silence. Not a chest was stolen, not a coin pocketed. This was no riot, no theft. It was a message. The colonies would not bow. By dawn, the news raced across New England. By the time it reached London, outrage had boiled over. King George III called it treason. Parliament responded with fury. The coercive acts, or as the colonists called them, the intolerable acts, closed Boston's port, revoked its charter, and forced its citizens to house British troops. The punishment was meant to crush rebellion, but instead, it sparked unity. From Virginia to New York, colonists who had often quarreled now saw Boston's struggle as their own. If Britain could strangle Massachusetts, it could strangle them all. Merchants organized boycotts of British goods. Farmers polished old muskets kept above their fireplaces. In churches, preachers declared liberty a sacred duty. In the summer of 1774, representatives from nearly every colony traveled to Philadelphia. Through heat and dust, by carriage and horseback, they came together at Carpenter's Hall. Men like George Washington of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Patrick Henry with his thunderous voice, and John Jay of New York. They argued, they debated, but for the first time, the colonies acted as one. The First Continental Congress did not yet call for independence, but it drew a line. They agreed to boycott British imports. They pledged to defend Massachusetts. They petitioned the king, hoping still for reconciliation. But the whispers of war grew louder. Meanwhile, in Boston, British troops patrolled the cobblestones in their red coats, muskets at their shoulders. Samuel Adams and John Hancock were hunted men, marked as traitors. General Thomas Gage prepared to stamp out the rebellion by force. Gunpowder and weapons were hidden in barns and sheds. Ordinary men drilled in secret fields. The storm was about to break, and then it did. On an April morning in 1775, British troops marched out of Boston toward the town of Concord, intent on seizing hidden weapons. On the way, they were met by a band of colonial militia at Lexington Green. Farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, ordinary men standing nervously with muskets in their hands, facing the Empire's finest soldiers. The two sides glared at each other in tense silence. Then, suddenly, a shot rang out. No one knew who fired it, but in that instant, history shifted. Muskets blazed, smoke filled the air, and men fell. It was the shot heard round the world. From that crack of gunfire, a revolution was born.